Welcome. I'm Steven Rapp, one of the onboarding and support specialists here at LegalServer, and I'm going to be talking today about basic public defender tools and configurations within LegalServer, how you can work your criminal cases within the case management system. We're going to spend some time just walking through the existing tools that we have, taking a quick look at what they look like, and then I will move into some demo sites to actually show you how they are used and how you can set them up or make some minor changes to those configurations of those different tools that we talk about. Hopefully this will help you to find the tools that you need and to make use of them in LegalServer. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be the Snapshot top. It's basically a tool that allows us to see information at a glance at the top of a case on the case profile. And it shows specific public defender information, things like the top charge, charges on the case, custodial status, your cause or case number, if you want to include a client photo, things like that. We'll talk through how to set up and use the enhanced charges block in LegalServer, the ability to collect charge information, what you need to see and what you need to know or report on those different cases related to, the charges related to your different cases. One of the things that's important is to be able to quickly update those charges. If you have to dispose of a bunch of charges on a case all at one time, instead of doing that independently on each charge, we have a way that you can do that in bulk, and I'll show you that. We'll talk about our case credits feature where you can track the credits of a case, how many points is a case worth, and what is your attorney caseload. We'll take a look at the arrest feature in LegalServer, allowing you to track arrest information, which you can relate to charges on the case. You can also track things like the arresting officer or the law enforcement agency. Some groups call this incidents. If you want to report or to track that information on a case, we have a way that you can do that. We'll take a look at the way that you can track and enter in custodial status information, which may change over time. So this is something that we can take a look at and see how you can set that up, where you can see the many-to-one information on a case. Are they in custody? Are they out of custody? Are they on parole or on bond? We'll take a look at that feature in LegalServer as well. We'll take a look at our discovery tool that allows you to keep track of specific discovery items like documents or URLs. You can also track requests or responses of discovery. We'll also be taking a look at our sentencing tool that allows you to track sentences based on a specific charge, allowing for a many-to-one relationship to the case record. So like custodial statuses, you can have more than one sentence record if you need to keep track of that. You can also link things like the court and the judge to the sentence if you need to. You can also track fines and or incarceration using the sentencing tool. We'll also quickly look at the internal messaging tool. Oftentimes groups find that their inbox are overflowing, and if they're working LegalServer, why not have the information, the messaging within LegalServer? We'll take a look at the ability to use the internal messaging tool to send and receive messages related to case notes or events or cases, so that you don't have to jump out of LegalServer to your inbox and then back in. So that's a nice little feature we'll take a look at as well. We'll also spend a little bit of time looking at a newer block we have out called the flow block, which allows you to create your own snapshot. At the very beginning, we talked about looking at the snapshot top. If maybe it doesn't have all the things that you need, or you want to show some custom information, the flow block would be a way that you could do that. You could use both on the profile, or you could just use the flow block, whatever makes you happy. I'm going to be jumping over to a couple demo sites to actually go through these different tools that we were talking about, and also to show you how you can configure those on your site. I just want to emphasize, though, that in LegalServer, the back-end functionality is going to be the same, but just realize that the demo sites I'm going to be using may look and feel a little bit different from yours because of how we have them set up, or the things that we have in the action menu, or the things that I've actually enabled or configured to use. It doesn't mean that it works differently or you don't have that. It just is how I have set these demo sites up for this demonstration and others. So just realize that you have the same capability of using the same tools. They just may not be set up in the same way. And you can make changes to those as you see fit. And you'll learn how as we go through this next little session. Let's start with this case on this demo site. As you can see, I'm in a case. The client is John Human. I'm actually looking at the first tool that we talked about, the Snapshot top. I just want to show you this here. Instead of having a small little snapshot on the left-hand sidebar, we're using this snapshot that's at the top of the case profile. If I scroll down, you can see there's other things on the profile. Again, profiles are dynamic, meaning that you as the site administrator can make changes or edit those, and you can choose what you want to show and where. The snapshot is similar to that. It's going to show you some basic case information. Why this is useful in the public defender realm is because we do include some additional criminal type information that a lot of our civil groups don't really care about. Things like custodial status, the charge information, and the cause number is not really useful in the civil world, but it is going to be important for us public defenders. So we have some things like charges and others that may be useful to you. There's also the ability, and you can choose whether to turn this on or off, the ability to show or not show a client photo, if that's something you're interested in. Let's take a look at how we can actually add this to our site and configure it. So I'm on the case profile right now, and because I'm logged in as administrator, I have the nice admin tool here where I can edit this profile. And on the back end, the very thing I have at the top is that snapshot top. It's just a block in LegalServer that you can add to your profile. I'm going to expand that so we can see the configuration options. Now, the important point here is that the block itself has certain things that it can and it doesn't do. It's basically hard-coded in the back end, but as the administrator, I can look at these different configurations and I can turn things on or off. So as an example, if I want to show or not show the top charge, I can turn that configuration off or on, and many of the other things here. So for public defenders, showing like the first two, top charge and cause number, may be important. In the subsection of the case, we can show the cause number. We can also show a section for charges, and we can show the custodial status. This is where I can also turn on or off the client photo. So just toggling these little checkboxes on or off will allow us to show information that may be useful to us and our staff. When I hit continue, it's going to take me back to the front end. I didn't make any changes, but I just wanted to show you that it's really easy to get to that, expand that block, and be able to make those changes on that. The next thing that I wanted to take a look at is the charges, the enhanced charges block in LegalServer. Now, we've already got some charges on this case that we can see here on the snapshot. But if I wanted to view or add additional charges here, I'm going to go to my actions menu, criminal actions, and go to edit multiple charges. We've got a couple things going on in this form here as it loads up. The very top is the charges list view, but right below that, we've got a block that we can see and add different charges. Now, this is maybe something that you may or may not want to use. This particular block, it doesn't have a lot of configuration options, because if I look at the back end, we've got the charges list view here and then our add charges block. You notice I can turn on or off a few things, but it doesn't allow me to add my own custom charge fields or maybe default some information that I want to default. So I wanted to show you that's an older version of our charges block, the add charges block, but we have a newer one, enhanced charges, that's going to be a little bit more easy to use and more efficient. So if I go back to my case profile and go to my actions menu here, criminal actions, and you can see that I've got enhanced charges down here. This is going to be the newer block, the newer functionality. I don't really need a list view because this block shows me the charges. I can expand them to see more information. And you can see that there's a lot of different fields here, including things like the credits, which we'll talk about next. But this block basically allows me to do things like duplicate a charge. If I want to quickly add additional charges that are exactly the same without having to rekey those, I can add a brand new charge down here if I wanted to add an additional charge to this particular form. So you can see I've got things like the charge date, the new charge. This basically is a search box. If I start typing a few letters or the statute number, it's going to search for the existing charges I already have in my system, so I can find those and add those there. I've got some custom fields that I've created, and I can add those to the block. We also have the ability to delete out a charge on this block too. So if one was entered in error, or if there needs to be a change, you can have the ability to delete and add a new charge if you need to. So this enhanced charges block, it basically allows me to create my own kind of charge entry form. So let's take a quick look at the back end of this form really quick so you can see how this all works. The block I have on here is the enhanced charges block. If I expand that block out, you can see there's a number of configurations at the top. So I can do things like restrict the charge by the effective date, which basically means when I have charges in the system, I can put like a start date and an end date for those charges so that if the charge or the statute lapses over time, people can't pick that once that date has passed. We also have things like showing different rows or information. I won't spend a lot of time on the configurations here. You can take a look at those on your site and decide what's going to be useful to you. But what I do want to talk about is the very bottom part here. This is where I can add different things to the form itself. We obviously are going to need the important pieces of information like the charge date, the charge, and if it's a top charge, yes or no. But anything after that, we can decide what we want to add to this form here. You can see I've got like a new row start. These are the elements that I can add. I could add a new row, arraignment date, charge category, so on and so forth. I can also create in the back end of LegalServer custom fields under the charge module, and those will be available for me to add to this form as well. So you can see these are the number of fields we have currently. If I just want to add a new field here, we'll just add the note one more time. We'll add it to the bottom. Oh, it already exists, so I can't add it one more time. What's not on here? That's for fun. Let's just put the external ID because I know that's not on there. I just add that down there and it's going to show that field for me. It's not going to be useful for our users, but the point is that you can go in and you can add additional fields. You also have the ability to edit those individual fields, making them required. You can also default a value and make it hidden, so it's always going to put that information on that without the user having to do anything. You can make it read-only. The big important thing here is when you add a new field, if you change anything like the label or the default value, you need to use a little check mark here. And then once you do that and save, you'll notice that on the form itself, when I open up or add a new charge, we've got a new field called external ID that's available for us right here. If I want to make a change again, I can go back and I haven't ruined anything. I can say, I don't really want that field anymore. I can click the little red X. I can save my form, hit continue, go back to the front. And now when I add a new charge, that external ID field is gone. I don't have that anymore. But the point here is that you basically control what all is the data that you want to add to your charges. Why I like this block a lot is because you can put it on your intake process where you're creating your cases and just have the basic data like the charge date, charge, and the top charge, maybe the note field. And then on the case profile, you can have a different charge block on your actions menu that includes things like the disposition date or other things you may need to collect after the charges have been entered in. Or maybe you want to use it on your closing form to update those charges to say, hey, we've disposed of these charges as we're closing this case. So the point there is that you can use that block in multiple ways in different places in LegalServer, and that's basically our charges. Going back to our case profile here, the next thing before we get to credits, I wanted to talk about the ability to bulk edit those charges. I'm going to go back to my actions menu, criminal actions, bulk edit charges. This form basically allows me to quickly make some changes to some system fields on the charges if I wanted to quickly dispose of many charges here. Again, this is something that you could also do on the closing form, but I have it on just my case profile here from the actions menu. But if I want to select all of them, I can select all of them, or I can just select a couple of those. And then you'll notice here I've got a couple different fields that allow me to say, I want to change these to maybe this one was dismissed or these two were dismissed, disposition date of today, and I can add a note to those. So we can do all or just a subset of the charges, and we can add that information instead of having to edit each individual charge entry by themselves. We can make those changes for the disposition date or note in bulk on those charges. The back end of this form is fairly simplistic. I'll just show you. There's the bulk edit charges block, or bulk charges edit, excuse me. And you can see here that we can add a few fields. You can choose which ones. Currently, it's these 3 system fields that are available. So if I didn't want to include the note, I could remove that, just like we saw in the enhanced charges block. If I want to have the note here, I could add it. So these are the 3 fields that are available, and you can choose which of those that you want to use if you want to use the bulk charges block. Let's go back and talk about credits a little bit. I wanted to go back to the enhanced charges block really quick and just show you that we have the enhanced charges turned on that, or sorry, enhanced charges, we have the credits turned on that. So when I add a charge here, We've got the credits information here. On the block itself, you can have it default to a particular user. You can also have it default to be just a credit for the top charge. And you can also have it default the effective date, things like that. If you're going to use charges, or credits and charges, this is not the only place that you can do that. They can also be not related to charges, and there's a way that you in LegalServer can edit or add what I would call administrative credits. Maybe you want to subtract some information or some credits because the case was dismissed earlier, the client disappeared. Or maybe you want to add a half credit because it was a difficult client or the case went longer than it was expected. There's a way that you can do that. So these credits you can add in the charges here, and you can also then decide how you want to use those if you do, or you can turn them off. But we also have a block and a form that allows you to view and change those credits. So back to my actions menu, criminal actions, and we can see here that I've got edit view case credits. This is going to allow me to see the list view of the credits we actually have on the case. You'll notice we've got credit amount of 3 for arson and first degree. This one, we don't have any credit at all. It's 2-point credit enhancement. And then we got a 1-point drive-by shooting credit on the charge. And then we've got a negative 0.5 credit deduction because it was early settlement. You get the point. The list view is going to show me that information. It's basically just a ledger that I can see that information, and then it totals it for me here. You can also add or update credits here down at the bottom. So if I click on the little edit pencil, it will allow me to edit that individual credit, or I can add a new one. Is it associated to one of the charges? I can say yes, and I can choose the charge that we have already entered on the case. Or I can say no, because it's just an administrative credit. And then I'm going to see what is the type of credit I want to add. It's a lookup that we can control, but you can see we've got credit deductions or credit enhancements. And then when I choose one of those, I'm going to have my credit subtypes, which allow me to say specifically, why are we going to deduct some credits from this particular case from this user? You'll notice that when I selected something up here, my case credit subtype showed me a slightly smaller list. These are interlocking lookups, basically means that what I choose up here will determine what shows up in the subtype. So we'll go to enhancements, and you'll see that it's a different list. If I get rid of that, please select, I'm not going to have any change there. If I refresh the form, I'd see everything. But the point is I can put in administrative credits, and I can say what type of credit that I want to do there, effective date, add a note, and then add my amount. It's going to default to the user that's the primary assignment of the case, but I could also remove them and choose somebody else if I wanted to. This list view and block, really easy to find. I'm going to go to the admin edit form here, and you can take a look. I've got my list view that shows me that information on the case. And then I've also got my case credits block, where I can have a few configuration options, things like defaulting the effective date to today. Do I want to require the effective date? You can set that as read only. You can limit the case credit amount to 2 decimals, depends on what you put in there, and so on and so forth. I don't need to read them all to you. But you can see that I have the ability to basically control a few things on that, and I can then show that information. There also is a case credits list view that's available on a user, on the user profile. If you want to just see the credits for all the cases for just that one user, you can also put one on the home page, but it's mostly going to be useful on the cases themselves. All this information also is reportable. So if you need to report on all the credits over time, so on and so forth. So take a look at the case credits feature. It's a great way for you to keep track of caseload of your staff. Going back to the front end, let's take a quick look at the arrests information in LegalServer. Go to the actions menu, criminal actions, edit arrests. We've got a nice little feature here, a list view and a block that allows me to add arrest information. So when I say yes, this is a many-to-one on cases, basically saying that we are storing more than one record on this one case, so we can keep track of all the arrests or the incidents over time. So we've got one sample piece of information in there. There's not a lot of data, but you can see on September of 2021, there was an arrest. We've got a citation number and we have a note. I'll just show you the form here. You can see that we've got information where they charged or uncharged. If we say yes or no, then we can actually say what charge was it related to. Again, these are the charges we've already entered on the case, so we don't have to look through the long list of all the charges possible. There can be an outcome if you want. I don't have anything in my lookup right now, but you can have different outcomes and you can choose whether to show that or not. We also have the ability to find an arresting officer or law enforcement agencies. Those are basically contacts for the arresting officers that you have stored in the system, so you don't have to type in the name every time. You can just do a quick search here. So if I take a look for officer, for example, maybe I don't have one. No results. But the point is, you can do a search for arresting officer or law enforcement agency, and those are coming from either your contacts, your organizations, and you can find those in there. And then you have the arrest notes. This block, the arrest blocks, allows you to turn on or off a few things. So if we take a look at the back end, we've got our list view up here that shows the details. You can control which columns you actually want to show. The arrest block, singular, is the one we want to be using here. You can turn on or off things like showing the citation number, requiring the citation number. You can show or not show the related charges. You can show or not show the outcome or outcome date. So you can turn some things on or off there. You also have the ability to relabel a few of those things that we have in there. So if you wanted to maybe not use citation number, but change that to something else, you could relabel that on that block so that you're able to collect that information. Just like the other things we talked about, this arrest information is also reportable within LegalServer. Similar to arrests, let's go back to our case profile and we're going to take a look at the custodial status tool. I'm going to go to actions, criminal actions, custodial status. This allows me to store many-to-one information on a case. You can see we've actually got 3 records here for custodial status. You can see that I can edit one of the records there, but the block at the very bottom allows me to add a new entry here. So similar to what we saw before, custodial status, if I choose a status, like incarcerated, then I may have some details. You can choose what your details are. It's an interlocking lookup, and you can say, if we choose this, then just show these examples. Or if we choose something else, then we may not have anything or just one example. That's something that you can control on the back end of LegalServer. You can add a note if you need to. You can also have a start date and end date and then related charges. Again, these are the charges that we've already stored on the case. So I can choose that they're in custody based on this one particular charge. If they're not in custody, there probably isn't going to be a related charge. And you can also track the institution, the jail or the prison they may be in for this custody. This again is an organization we're looking for. So if I'm looking for a jail or a prison, this one should probably work. I got ABC jail, and then I can also remove that if I need to. This block, it does have a few configuration options. I'll take a look at the back end here. Let's edit this form. You can see we've got our list view there. We also have the custodial status block, and then you can see that we've got some things that we can turn on or off with that. So one of the things, you can default the prior custodial status to end 1 day before the new custodial status, so you don't have to type that information in. You can default the institution from the client's address if you have collected that already as they're in custody and their address is an institution. You can also show or not show related charges, and you can show or not show the details, so on and so forth. Again, custodial status block, it's a nice little tool to keep track of that information, many-to-one information on a case, and it is reportable information in LegalServer. Moving back to the case profile, the next thing I wanted to take a look at is the discovery tool. Discovery tool, it's basically a general litigation tool. I'm going to jump here to my criminal actions, add edit discovery. There's a list view here at the top. We can see there's a couple discovery records in, and below is where we can create a brand new discovery event, which would allow me to keep track of specific items, and they can also be requests or they can be responses. You'll notice here we have things like the title of the discovery, the date it was received, date served, due date. Just like the other things, if we choose a particular type, request, we may have subtypes. If we say response received, we may have subtypes. There we go. And so we can use the lookup feature in LegalServer to create those different values and show what we want to show here if we need to collect that data. We can have some item details, media type, number of items received, first page of discovery, last page, destroyed on close, description information, and we can also add a note to this if we want to. And then you'll notice here we have the ability to upload a document in a LegalServer. When we say document, it's truly just an electronic file. It could be a video, could be an audio file, could be a picture, or an image. It could be a PDF, could be a Word document, what have you. That's what we mean by documents. You can upload the actual file here, or you can enter in a URL if it's an outside source that you just want to link to. And you can have more than one document. And then we just upload that and we can store it on the case. Jumping back to the back end here, when we edit this form, similar to what we saw before, we've got the matter discovery log, our list view that shows us the information at the top, and then we've got our discovery block. The discovery block is where all that magic happens, all those different fields that we saw. You can default some things, you can turn some things on or off, make some changes to the note information, but the configuration does allow you to determine what's going to be the best use for your users. If you never collect a piece of data like the discovery note or something like that, you could turn that off so it just doesn't take up the space on the form. You can also require a few items if you want to. But this allows you some configuration options for that discovery as you're entering them into the case. I'm going to hit continue and move back to the front end of the case one more time so we can take a look at the next little tool that we had in our list. Jumping back to our actions menu, the next thing we're going to take a look at is our sentencing. So I'm going to go to the edit sentences form. Like other things in LegalServer, this is a many-to-one on the case, meaning I can store more than one sentence on this particular case. It is reportable information in LegalServer. You can see we've got 3 records already entered in here. So this is sentencing information. On the bottom here is our form. We can say the sentence is related to an existing charge on the case, one that we've already entered in. We can have a sentence date here. We can also search for and find a sentencing judge, just like the other blocks. We can also look for a court. This is going to come from, judges are coming from our contacts. Courts are coming from our organizations. So if we do a quick little search here for the word court, I'm sure we'll find a couple examples. You get the idea. We can also have a little note here, sentencing conditions, if we need to keep track of that. The sentencing tool also allows us to keep track of, does it include incarceration? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then we're going to have a start date, the duration, how long are they in? Is that days, weeks, months, or years? So this sentence is for 6 months. Pretty easy to put in a 6 and then say months. And if we also may or may not have fines that we can enter into there as well. This block, when we look at the back end of this form, you'll notice here the block has the sentencing information. It also includes the list view itself, so you don't have to have a different list view to show that information. And you can choose to show that yes or no here. And then there's not a lot of configuration options, but if you want to have the ability to edit the sentences, you can use this to say, yes, we're using this form to edit existing sentences. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue to go back to the front end here and just highlight that when I click on one of these existing ones, that basically pulls that information into the form so that I don't have to rekey it in, but I can make changes. If I need to make a change to the start date or maybe the sentence changed, I can do that here. All right, going back to the front end of the case, before we get to the last features that I wanted to look at, I also wanted to highlight that many of the things that we talked about have corresponding list views that you can see on the case profile. So scrolling down here a little bit further, you'll notice I've got a charges list view right here on the case. I do have the ability to view that information or edit charges. I've got a case credits list view that I can see the credits on a case and I can edit those individual charges. I've got my discovery list view here on the case that allows me to see or view discovery, and I can add a new discovery record, which would take me to that add discovery form. The point is that most all of those different things that we took a look at there, we have different list views that you can throw onto the case profile if you need to see those at a glance without having to go to the actions menu to the actual form. If you like it on the form, that's great too, or you can have it in both places. The second to last thing that we're going to take a look at or talk about on this particular demo site is the internal messaging tool. I just want to highlight that, again, this is useful if you want to allow people to have messages within LegalServer and not have to create an email that they're going to have to jump out of LegalServer to look in their inbox and then come back to LegalServer to do something on the case. So messages are a nice little feature there. Typically on most of the notes blocks, I'm just going to open up case notes here, you have the ability to turn on a configuration to send the note as an email, also to send the note as a message. And when you do that, you have the ability to choose the recipient. So this is not always turned on by default on the case note block, but basically it's going to say what is the note body and who you're going to send it to. That's going to be sent as a message. If we take a look at the back end of that block there, add case notes, you'll notice here that I have the ability to allow send as a message button. And so if you do have the internal messaging tool turned on for the different user roles, then you can use that and it will have the little icon. They can see their notes and the messages up there at the top. Going back to the front end there, let's just quickly add a note so we can see how it works. We've got 8 messages right now, and I'll just send a note to myself. We'll just say this is a case note, just for fun. Test note and message is my subject, test. I'm going to send this as a message to LegalServer staff that I'm logged in as, and I'm going to go down to the bottom here, hit continue. And we now should see at the very top, we have 9 new messages in the system. So we can see our unread messages. This is the one that we just sent. If I click on that, it's going to open up that message profile. I can see that information. There wasn't any documents attached, but if there was, they would be stored here so I can see those. I can reply to the message. So if I want to reply back to the user that sent it, I can do. The other thing I can do is either from up here, I can see my unread dismissed, and I can also compose a new message, or from the left-hand column here, I can look at my unread messages as a list view here. You'll notice I have the ability to dismiss all of these in bulk or one at a time. I can look at my archived or dismissed messages. Again, I can reply to any of these messages here if I've dismissed them but need to reply. I can also create a brand new message not associated with a particular thing like a module, cases, outreaches, tasks, events, documents, or I could associate it to a particular case if I wanted to. It might be easier to go to the case itself and create a note so I don't have to figure out what case it is. But the point is you can create new messages here and send them from this tool. All right, the last thing that we're going to take a look at here is going to be the flow block in LegalServer. I'm going to jump to a brand new demo site here really quick because I've got this one set up. Here's my flow block. This is a nice feature. As I described it earlier, it's a way for you to build your own snapshot. I just happen to have the snapshot here on this case up at the very top. So you can see Johnny Client, we've got some information here. Unlike the other side, I don't have the image turned on, the client photo, but you can see I've got a lot of information here. But the flow block is a way for me to basically build out the information that I need to see on the case at a glance. I can use the flow block in multiple ways. I can use it on the case profile. I could put it behind a tab. I could also put it on an auxiliary process from my actions menu. You can repurpose flow blocks and use them in more than one place. You can also use the flow block in different ways on the same profile. So it's a little bit more flexible. You basically get to build your own. I'm going to jump to the back end of this profile so we can take a look at that block really quick. It's going to take a second because I got a lot of things on this particular profile. So as that spins, I'll just highlight that this is going to look similar to the enhanced charges block, how we actually edit this. But you can see here are all the things I have on my profile. Here's my flow block. When I open that up here, you'll notice that I can give my flow block a name, which basically means once I name it and save this form, then I can use it in another place. I can use a copy of an existing flow block or make a copy if I want to, but down here is where I can basically control what we're showing there. So I've got some different elements that I can add here and a ton of different fields that I can add as well. So a new column or new header, those do what they say. Basically, if I want to have a new column of information, then I give it a new header, which I can label, and then I can add all the different information that we have on here, including your own custom fields on your site. Now, there are going to be some things that are card-like that will show information like all the charges on the case disposition, things like that. But I may want to show some other information there. So the point is that you can build your own thing and you basically can just search for the field that you want. So if we look for charge card, for example, I could add the charge card to my flow block. Once it's added here, then I can go in here and I can make an edit to that particular field. For this example, the litigation card, it doesn't have much I can do. It's just showing information, but I could relabel that one. This one right above it, though, is a custom field. What color of t-shirts? Not a field that most people would have on their site. I created it specifically as a test. This is where you can see that I can choose, do I want to make it editable? If the answer is yes, then I would choose which dynamic process to launch. And then I can also determine if I want that to be viewable on a particular type of disposition. So only show this field if it's an open case, but don't show if it's a closed case, things like that. I'm going to open up one other field here just to show you that they're also on system fields. You have the ability to highlight or hide the field when particular answers are selected. So as example, if I wanted to highlight the veterans field, if the answer is no, that would allow me to show that information in a colored box. So to indicate that that's important information that people would see. I can also choose to, if the value is answered one certain way, I could hide the field on the flow block so it doesn't actually take up space. Nobody needs to know about it. So there's a lot of different configuration options. Again, if you make any changes, you want to make sure that you hit the little green check mark there. And then we're going to go ahead and save and hit continue. And that's going to take us back to the front end. Scroll down to the bottom here where my flow block lives, and you can see that I said if the veteran status was no, then highlight that field. And so that field now is showing up in a little bit of a red color. So that's a feature that the flow block has available to it. So again, you can control what you're going to do here. You can control also if you want people to be able to edit that information by deciding on the back end if they say, yes, we want to make that editable. What case disposition should it be editable in, and then where should we go to edit that? That's a clickable link now that's going to take me to the process that allows me to edit the phone numbers and other contact information. So the flow block is a nice feature that allows you to create your own snapshots. And again, you can use it in multiple ways in different places throughout your case profile or on auxiliary forms.